semiconductor manufacturing in the U.S. and a real demand for qualified workers. These chips power everything.
Picture this. You're standing in the middle of nowhere, pure Arizona desert, dust as far as you can see. Now imagine trying to build something here that's more complex than a nuclear reactor, cleaner than a hospital operating room, and more precise than a Swiss watch. Oh, and one tiny mistake, that'll cost you about $30,000 per wafer. Welcome to the impossible world of modern chip making. Here's what nobody tells you about semiconductors. Building the factory is actually the easy part. The real challenge, you're not building one factory. You're building 4 invisible factories inside that factory, each one fighting against physics, chemistry, and the harsh reality of the desert itself. And if even one of those invisible factories fails, the entire operation collapses like a house of cards worth $165 billion. Let's talk about something you've probably never considered: water. Not just any water. Water that's 1,000 times purer than what you drink, cleaner than what surgeons use for injections in the desert, where water is already the most precious resource on Earth. The irony is almost poetic. Each silicon wafer, that thin disk that becomes your phone's brain, drinks 2,000 gallons of water during its lifetime. That's not a typo. One wafer, 2,000 gallons. Now multiply that by the thousands of wafers produced daily, and you're looking at 6 Olympic swimming pools of ultra-pure water disappearing into the desert every single day. But here's where it gets interesting. You can't just purify Arizona water the same way you'd purify Taiwan water. The chemistry is different. Arizona's water is loaded with magnesium and calcium, minerals that would destroy a chip faster than you can say semiconductor. So what do? You build a stadium-sized water purification plant that strips away every single molecule that doesn't belong there. Stage after stage of filtration, reverse osmosis, deionization, and finally, a polishing process that creates the purest water that exists anywhere on Earth. Water so pure, it literally only exists inside semiconductor fabs. Now let's talk about air. You're thinking, come on, Arizona has plenty of air, right? Wrong, dead wrong. Inside a semiconductor clean room, the air you breathe would be considered catastrophically dirty. A single eyelash floating through the air can destroy weeks of work and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The clean room in Arizona spans 1.7 million square feet. Imagine multiple football fields stacked together, and every cubic meter can contain no more than 10 particles. 10. Meanwhile, the air outside contains thousands of particles per cubic meter, and the desert wants nothing more than to force its way inside. The solution? The building literally breathes outward. Air pressure inside is kept higher than outside, creating an invisible barrier that pushes the desert away. Clean air flows from ceiling to floor in a carefully choreographed dance, and teams of engineers spent months tuning this flow until it was absolutely perfect. One wrong adjustment, one leak, and the entire clean room becomes compromised. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Even with all this infrastructure, even with the water plant and the air control and the billion-dollar machines, the facility still can't produce chips without importing materials from halfway across the planet. Sulfuric acid, the backbone chemical that strips away photoresist and clears contamination, costs 5 times more in the United States than in Taiwan. So what's the solution? Ship it 6,500 miles across the Pacific Ocean. Yes, you read that correctly. It's cheaper to ship ultra-pure sulfuric acid from Taiwan to Arizona than to buy it locally. Then there are the gases. Neon, for instance. It makes up 95% of the gas mixture inside the deep ultraviolet lasers that print microscopic patterns onto chips. Without ultra-pure neon, those lasers become unstable, the light blurs, and defects multiply across the wafer like a virus. And guess what? Arizona doesn't produce it locally. Neither do most specialty gases used in advanced chip making. They're imported from Taiwan, Japan, and Europe. Even the raw silicon wafers themselves still arrive by plane from overseas. So here's the uncomfortable truth. From the outside, this facility looks completely American. Dig deeper, and you'll find it's still umbilically connected to a supply chain stretching thousands of miles across oceans. It's a testament to how truly global and interdependent modern technology has become. But the most scarce resource of all, it's not water, it's not chemicals, and it's not even the $150 million machines. It's people. Specifically, people who understand the dark art of semiconductor manufacturing at the nanometer scale. In Taiwan, generations of engineers have been trained in the rituals of extreme precision chip making. They possess something that can't be shipped in a container or downloaded from the internet. Muscle memory, instinct, the kind of knowledge that comes from doing something thousands of times until it becomes second nature. Arizona had none of that expertise. Zero. So what happened? Engineers were flown to Taiwan for months of training, absorbing not just knowledge but culture. The culture of obsessive precision where a millionth of a meter matters, where good enough doesn't exist in the vocabulary. Local colleges scrambled to create semiconductor programs from scratch, building curricula for an industry that barely existed in the region a few years ago. And here's the thing about advanced chip making. It's not just about following instructions. At 4 nanometers, you're working across 4,000 manufacturing steps with hundreds of variables at each step. Change the location, and those variables shift. The ground is drier, vibrating at different frequencies. The air chemistry is different. The power grid behaves differently. Even the culture of how people work and solve problems is different. Any one of these shifts can throw off the nanoscale precision required, and suddenly your yield, the percentage of working chips per wafer, collapses from 90% to 30%. At 90% yield, you're printing money. At 30%, you're hemorrhaging cash so fast it would make your head spin. The first attempts were brutal. Variables drifted. Dust storms breached supposedly sealed clean rooms. Systems that worked flawlessly in Taiwan struggled in Arizona. Yield crashed. Engineers pulled all-nighters for months, tweaking, adjusting, troubleshooting thousands of microscopic details until finally, the first functional 4 nanometer wafer emerged, the most advanced silicon ever produced on American soil. It took months of pain to reach that milestone, but they got there. Now here's the catch, the uncomfortable reality that nobody wants to discuss. This Arizona facility will always be 1 or 2 process nodes behind Taiwan. Always. Why? Because Taiwan develops, Arizona inherits. Every new chip technology starts in Taiwan's research and development centers, where yields begin below 30% and engineers push the boundaries of what's physically possible. Only after the process matures, after yields climb and stability is proven, does the technology transfer overseas. Arizona won't invent the next generation of chips. It will perfect what Taiwan has already pioneered. Is that a failure? Actually, no. It's strategy. It allows expansion without sacrificing the bleeding-edge innovation happening in Taiwan. But it also means America is building something more modest than the rhetoric suggests. Not a competitor to Taiwan's dominance, but a parallel production line for slightly older but still advanced technology. And yet, despite everything, the water challenges, the supply chain dependencies, the talent shortage, the higher costs, the facility is ramping up, production is climbing. By 2028, the site will expand into a mega facility producing 100,000 wafers monthly. Additional phases are already under construction, targeting 3 nanometer and 2 nanometer processes. For the first time in decades, America can produce cutting-edge logic chips domestically. The question isn't whether this facility can work, it's already working. The real question is whether America can turn this foothold into something bigger, something that fundamentally shifts the balance of semiconductor manufacturing away from its current concentration in East Asia. Can the United States streamline regulations so facilities don't take a decade to build? Can it cultivate a generation of engineers passionate about chip making? Can it build the complete ecosystem from raw materials to packaging needed to truly compete? Time will tell. But one thing is certain. You can't just copy a semiconductor factory and expect it to work. You have to rebuild everything, customize everything, adapt everything. Water, air, tools, and people. 4 invisible factories that must work in perfect synchronization, or the whole system fails. Arizona proved just how brutal that reality can be. Now the world is watching to see if America can turn that brutal lesson into lasting success.